What's up, everybody? It's Monday. I'm Mover. I've got a special guest today. We are going to talk about Tomcats and probably some other stuff too. He has flown everything. Awesome career. Currently retired, living the good life, and he's going to talk to us about his life. So, without further ado, so we're going to do the interview, and then if you want your question answered, use Super Chat. And don't forget to donate to Folds of Honor. That is set up here for accepting donations for this. So, let's see. Where is old Oral here? And bam. You're live. Hi.
Hello.
Hello, Commander. Retired. Plaisier / Oral. Let us begin. Tomcats.
Tomcats. Yeah.
This is the man, the myth, the person that I got the whole Tomcats thing from. You've seen my DCS Tomcats experience.
I did.
Tell the audience how good I am at Tomcats and how you wish I could fly. You could fly Tomcats.
That was very authentic. Very authentic. You even got into flat spin. There you go.
How many flat spins have you been in your? We'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah.
So. Well, tell me about yourself. And this is not like the trap in the squadron where they're like, tell me about yourself and then sit down. This is actually no kidding. Tell me about yourself. But did you start flying? Dude, right now you're doing general aviation, cargo, and you've flown a whole bunch of stuff. How did you get the bug? Like, what kicked off your love of aviation that started it all?
I don't know. It was kind of a childhood dream, I guess you could say, kind of the stereotypical, I can think back, like, when I was a little kid, probably like 8 years old or so, even younger than that, we lived kind of out in the country, and there was a lot of blueberry fields and stuff around.
Yeah.
And early in the morning, there would be this guy flying a turbine ag cat.
Russell Case? Did he save the world eventually?
No, he was crop dusting, and I'd hear this thing, and I just thought it was the coolest thing. I go running out in the street barefoot, and mom yelling at me, don't go in the street and all this, and watching this guy get out and crop dusting, and I remember sometimes he'd come over the house and I'd run down the road, probably where he's spraying, not the smartest thing to do probably, but
that explains a lot. Explains everything. Now we understand the chemical. Okay.
That's kind of where I first really got the bug, and then just kind of loved airplanes. And from there, I had the stereotypical airplane kid wallpaper. So,
which airplane? What was the?
They were one fighter biplanes.
Cool. Yeah, awesome.
But it just kind of took off from there.
Did you get your pilot's license early on, or did it take a while?
I did. Yeah, I was a senior in high school, and I got my private pilot's license. I knew that was the direction I wanted to go. So I started that. I kind of we were in like a little youth group thing through our church. It was called Cadets, kind of like a Boy Scout setup. But we went, and when we were pretty young at that point, I think like 14, we went and did like a ground school and stuff.
Yeah.
And the guy was teaching us, and I got like an introductory flight. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Took the private exam, failed it.
Hey, me too. I did the same thing. The grounds, I failed the first. I was like, this is going to be easy. Like, you failed by one question. Go home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was back when you had to fill in the circles. There was no computer stuff and anything. And I got, I had studied, I thought, pretty hard for it, and I was kind of upset about it. But again, I was pretty young at that point. But I didn't give up on it. Kept going, and just kind of went through there. Went to a small college and had an aviation program. And,
wow. What would you solo in? Like, what was your first airplane? Was it a tailwheel or?
No, it was the PA-38 Piper Tomahawk.
Wow.
Also known as the Traumahawk.
So out of high school, were you a straight A student, 4.0, or how did high school? Because a lot of kids are like, if I don't get a 4.0 every year since I was a kindergartner, I can't do it. Was this you? Were you that guy? Were you an astronaut as a high school kid?
I had a straight 4.0 average in shop and mechanical drawing. And that was it. Everything else was not so good. I did not have the best grades going out. I I remember going to like some career fairs and stuff, and there were like the all academies were there, and I remember talking to those guys, going, "Hey, I'm really interested, because I wanted to go in the Navy, all that already at that point." And they kind of ask what your grade point is, and they kind of pause for a moment, and they're like, "There's a lot of nice other schools here." I'm like, "Oh." So I did not have the grades to get scholarships or go to any of the academies or anything like that.
But you went to real college, right?
I went to a real college. I went to the college actually doesn't have the program anymore. It's a small, I would almost call it a community type college. I had a 4-year aviation degree, and that's what I went to. And it was local. I stayed at home. The parents saved money.
Yeah. Well, dude, that works.
Yeah.
That works.
All about, and
well, did you go ROTC? Did they even have that, or was it you went OCS?
No, I went OCS. They didn't have ROTC. I had looked at Western Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
They have a pretty huge flying program. It's even bigger now, but there again, I had to do the ACT scores, and it was the maybe you can brush up on a community college first and then reapply.
The world needs ditch diggers, obviously. Why? What?
So this place, took me, and that's where I went. But they did not have any ROTC programs. And I was worried about eyesight too.
Mm-hmm.
I was still seeing okay, but everybody in my family was wearing glasses, and I could kind of see the write on the wall of what was going to happen. So I was nervous about doing an ROTC and then, getting locked in. So I did that program. I was a flight instructor for almost 2 years on the city side.
Okay, yeah.
And the airlines really weren't hiring that much at that time. And
sounds familiar.
Yeah, yeah, it's kind of a trend. A couple guys were getting picked up here and there, but it just wasn't. And I always kind of had the Navy in the back of my mind. And I just started applying and went from there.
Wow. So how long did it take from the time you graduated till OCS? Like, how was that process?
From the time I graduated college?
Yeah.
So I was out for about a year and a half.
Okay.
I was just mainly flight instructing, building my hours up, because I was trying to get to that 1,500 hour point to get the ATP, and then where you could fly.
Oh yeah, so you were trying to do airlines. If I can't do the fighter thing, I'm going to go fly for the airlines, and that's it. Yeah. Wow.
So that's what the time I was building up, and I had gotten at that point, but nobody was really hiring, and so I was like, I guess I'll go give the Navy a shot. My eyesight was still okay.
Yeah.
I'll call it okay.
You could see. You can pass. It's good enough. Well, now there's waivers and everything. It's a lot different these days. So OCS to flight training, was OCS kind of a culture shock having grown up small town USA?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely a culture shock. I was thinking about that actually today, like when you first show up, everybody's kind of like, "Hey, man, what's going on?" And everybody shows up, and then just go over and line up here. You got the nice people that
yeah. No worries. It's fine.
Yeah. Just go through that door over there. You're like, "Oh, okay." You wander through the door.
Were you thinking about that when I was reassuring you that this would be fine? Oh, it'll be fine. Just sit over there and tell your story. It'll be fine. Don't worry.
You hear all the screaming and shouting and
Ma!
But yeah, it was definitely a big adjustment, and I went through OCS in Pensacola. It used to be AOCS, were strictly aviation, but when I went through OCS, it was all combined, all officer candidates. But it's still in Pensacola, but we still had Marine drill instructors. So those were our main adversary, if you will.
That made things interesting.
Yeah, I will never forget the first time I heard my drill instructor's voice from behind this camouflage curtain. You see these shiny little boots underneath the curtain, and you see their thundering voice yelling at, and you're like, "Oh,
oh, geez."
Yeah, and he was a very frightening man. Gunnery Sergeant SEALs, United States Marine Corps.
Well, you still remember? You'll never forget. So let's go happier times. You get through that, and then it's API, and that is kind of your first time wearing a flight suit and thinking you're King Kong, right?
Yep.
Now you're a pilot. Any issues with that, or was it at that point the aviation kind of set in?
that point it kind of set in. You know, my biggest hurdle, you know, I kind of talked about the, we'll leave that maybe for later, but the eyesight thing, there's a little story that goes along with that, how I snuck through that one. But when at API, I mean, yeah, it was a culture shock, but I had in my view, a huge advantage because I had so much aviation
Flight
background.
Time. Yeah.
So weather, all, you know, charts, all that stuff was easy for me.
Yeah, you were an
the hard
instructor.
stuff was,
yeah, right.
So the hard stuff was, you know, the engines and you know, there were still some hard tests that you had to get through, but we had a good group of guys that I was rooming with, and we studied hard and we got through it really well. So it, you know, it worked out.
T-34, was it T-34 the first thing you flew?
T-34 Charlie was down in Corpus Christi, Texas.
Wow.
BT-28 Rangers.
Yeah. Yep. So, I mean, had you done any aerobatics and stuff in your civilian time? I mean, were you pretty comfortable getting in the airplane?
I did aerobatics. I actually, when I was going through college, I worked at a aircraft refinishing shop.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
I got a lot of hands-on time. Kirk Nigan, it's for you. He was the boss.
Here I am.
And I actually bought a Citabria that was kind of a rough case, and I fixed it up and repainted it, and so I had about 100 hours of playing around in that thing, and I did dual instruction in that for tail wheels and some aerobatic courses through college. So I had a little bit of time, but it's pretty basic stuff.
Yeah.
So, but as far as it really wasn't, you couldn't pull many G's. I mean, the T-34, you couldn't pull that many G's either.
Yeah,
but
that's the old bailout, right? You got to get out and actually crawl your way out of the aircraft if you no seat.
But it could put you to sleep.
Oh, well, yeah, onset rate, yeah.
So we were doing one maneuver, and I went out.
Did you really?
The T-34. I'll never forget the instructor. This lady instructor. She was a Chinook pilot, and I just remember her over the ice desk going, "You okay, man? You okay?" And we did this thing called a clover leaf.
Yeah, I remember.
It was like a demo do. We weren't supposed to do it. It wasn't part of the syllabus, and I just pulled it on.
Out, chicken. Luckily there's no video evidence of such things.
No video evidence. She never said a thing. She's like, "I won't say anything because we're not supposed to do it." It was like, okay, good, thank you.
How many G's was it? Like 4, 5?
Like, I have a horrible G tolerance.
Well, you are tall, very tall, slender man. Well, all right. So after that, what did you fly? I mean, so it's changed so much. What was back in my day? What came after the T-34?
So the T-34 Charlie, I had just missed the T-2A4 window.
Oh, yeah.
3 or 4 months.
Everybody loves the scooter. Yeah.
Yeah. Really wanted to fly the A4. But you had to go to Meridian, and Meridian had this awful, stigma about it. But anyways, it had gone away at that point, or was on. They weren't taking any more students for it. So I had the T-45 Alpha is what I flew.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
I went to Kingsville, right next door there in Corpus Christi, and flew the T-45 Alpha.
And that's where you landed on the boat for the first time.
Yep.
And obviously did really well. So what was it like? I mean, the first time you go is solo, right? There's no one in the back seat, no one to take the jet.
Nope.
How did that feel first time out?
I'll never forget you join up, as a 4-ship, and you have lead safes that take you out to the boat, and you're overhead till you get your call down, and remember the lead safe going, "Look down, boys, there she is." You look down and you're like, "Oh, okay." You just remember seeing this tiny little thing down there.
Yeah.
And it was nerve-wracking, but I don't remember that much about the first pass.
It's just
I really don't.
All
because
instinct.
You're concentrating so hard. I mean, you practice so much what we call the FCLPs, which is the landing carrier pattern, and you're literally on brain stem power at that point. You're just doing what you got to do. And I remember the first trap, and then I remember more of the first cat shot, just screaming into the mic. Because I mean, it was unbelievable. That first cat shot.
But you did so well that you got Tomcats, right? Is that how the progression worked? I mean, the stronger at the boat meant Tomcats. How did that
usually
work?
that's how it worked out. So they would break it down. I mean, you had so many scores as far as weapons and air to air and all that, but the boat was a big factor for who went to Tomcats versus Hornets. Then we had Prowlers, we had S3s at that time, so you had
a lot of options. Yeah.
And two weren't good. Two were good. Two weren't good. Depending on what
fighter. A lot of people with you.
Yeah. So, and I kind of laugh about it, but I mean, initially I wanted Hornets. I thought that was the latest and greatest.
Oh, really? No, not a fan of the Tomcats. No Top Gun, Kelly McGillis.
I was, but I was like, and the theory was the Super Hornets were going to come out, and the Tomcats were going to go away real quick, and I got Tomcats, but it was the best thing that ever happened.
Really?
Because I'm so glad I didn't go to Hornets.
Yeah. Well, because you eventually, we'll get to that, but you eventually did get to go to Hornets.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
But I mean, just as far as, the camaraderie of what the Tomcat squadrons were versus the Hornet squadrons was just night and day.
So on the Tomcats, all the people in the chat, Tomcats. You flew the D. Tell me about it, man. Just give me, what's it like to be a Tomcat pilot in the United States Navy at the sunset of the Tomcat?
Yeah, so we go to the RAG, in 101 in Oceana, and you don't know what you just know you got Tomcats. So we had the A's, B's, and D's.
Oh, really? Wow.
And so they sat us down all in a closed classroom. Remember the guy that was giving the brief, the instructor, Booger Berghoff. Nobody knows what they're going, and there wasn't a wish list. I don't think there was, but. And then the guys show up and they got the list and they just start handing out NATOPs. And that's when you find out which one you got,
Yeah.
And, I really wanted the D because it was, it was the latest and greatest.
Yeah.
Had a lot of cool toys on it. And I lucked out, I got the D. There's two of us, me and Lick McLean was the other guy in my class. Yeah. We were the same squadron too. So there wasn't many D squadrons. They only made 55 of them.
Wow.
So
what was what was the D? Like what differentiated the D from the other models? So
the D had the big engines, the G 110s, like the B model did.
Mm-hmm.
So it had the really big engines, and it had basically the entire avionics suite was completely new. So it was all digital, had the 1553, the data bus. It had a HUD, a Hornet HUD I would call it on steroids. It was far superior.
So it actually was useful. It didn't look like the thing in DCS that I did where I'm looking at it going.
No, that was the A HUD. That thing was. I mean, I never flew the A, but I've seen pictures of it. And you're like,
what is it supposed to be telling me? It's just a bunch of lines.
Yeah. So we had the D HUD it was essentially the same size as a Charlie HUD, but it had a lot more useful information in it, I think. We had two MFDs like a Hornet.
Oh, cool.
Up front. And we had then we had another MFD for like the SMS and everything else. So we had basically like a moving map.
So could you do the radar from the front, or did the trunk monkey have to do it?
That was all in the back. We had hot modes. So we had the radar hot modes we could control, and we also had Erst hot modes that we could control. That was the pilot's radar.
Wow. So what's it like? I mean, I've obviously always been single seat, so I don't necessarily appreciate it as much as others. What's it like? I mean, is it enhancing, degrading, or it just depends?
Flying with somebody else?
Yeah, in the back.
Yeah. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I mean, I really did. One, it keeps you from doing stupid things. So, because he's got somebody that'll tell him. But, overall, it helped me, because there's a lot going on, and they're doing, and the radar and that thing took a lot of finesse to get it to do what it had to do. And there's no way, in my opinion, a pilot could have done it.
Yeah.
And there's just way too many fine tuning things that they had to mess around with, to do what they had to do.
Did they do all the bomb dropping too when you did the air-to-ground mission?
They ran the pod. We couldn't control the pod whatsoever, so they had a separate hand control in the back to do all that. We would drop the bombs. We had the pickle button and the master safe and all that stuff.
Same for the missiles too? Did you have to shoot the missiles?
We could, but they also had a button in the back.
Okay, because that's different than the Super Hornet. And the Super Hornet, I think doctrinally, it's all the front seat guys do those.
Yeah, it's all front. Yeah, in the back they could launch. missiles. That I mean, that never happened. We would always do it from the front, but they could do it from the back.
So was the Tomcat slicked off? I mean, was it a fun machine to dogfight? I mean, what'd you?
It was. I mean, it's especially those big engines. I mean, the amount of thrust that thing had was pretty incredible. I mean, just the best memories I have of that thing are just straight and level, just lighting the blowers, and there was basically three stages. You may have flew the same engines the F-16.
Zone 5. You got to go Zone 5 and extend.
Yeah, that's the Pratts, and those things were horrible. They killed a lot of people, those stupid engines. But the 110s, you had 3 different phases of the afterburner. You could feel each phase kicking in, and then that last one just boom, it throw you right back in the seat.
That's awesome. Was it? I mean, a heavy cat shot in a Tomcat's got to be awesome.
We did a couple. We had your max takeoff was 74,000 pounds, and you were allowed a 76,000 pound cat shot.
Yeah, wow.
And we actually did a couple that were 76 during the war effort because we were carrying so many bombs, and that was a serious kick. You definitely felt the difference between your normal cat shot than when you're fully loaded out. But as far as dogfighting it took a lot of finesse to fight that thing.
I've noticed, and I have no finesse in the DCS, so I can't.
I mean, the jet would talk to you quite a bit, but I lucked out because when I showed up, pretty much all the jets had been converted to DFCS, which was a digital flight control system.
Yeah, okay.
Which was a vast improvement compared to the old analog system. So it took away a lot of the bad tendencies that thing had. So I mean, the older Super Bowl guys really had to watch it, what they were doing. This thing it's basically it was like throwing in a mini flight control system out of a Hornet.
Was it what was departure spin? Was it like 27 steps like an F5?
There was a lot of steps. I was trying to remember it the other day. I was like, I can't remember all these steps. See, ours were different because we had MFDs, so we would actually get a spin arrow.
Oh, no kidding. Just like the Hornet. Yeah.
And you'd have to, input the controls, this and that. But there was all these other steps that you had to watch out for. And it was no kidding. Like, if it came down to it, it was jettison the canopy.
Yeah.
And then, you would eject because the canopy, that was actually a real thing. If it was in a flat spin, the canopy would hover right above the airplane.
Yeah.
Because they would get caught in the slipstream. So that was the danger of it. That's why you jettison the canopy first. Then.
Wow. That's pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess I got it right.
Yeah. But I mean, that DFCS, the departure spins just vastly went down. You just didn't have to worry about it as much, which was great.
So did you do a lot of dissimilar?
We did. On the boat, we'd fight the Hornets quite a bit.
How'd that work out? Because everybody wants to know Tomcat versus Hornet. What are you taking?
So it depends. I mean, obviously, our one circle game was not the best because we just couldn't get low. We couldn't point the nose like a Hornet could. So our whole game plan was to try and get them into a rate type fight or get them down on the deck because we could monster them on the deck.
Could you do the double Immelman? Like once you get over the top, could you go over the top again? Yeah, like a Viper.
You could do that. And so, I mean, you'd see that, the Hornet putting his own nose up, and you're like, you just keep rocking it up, So you kind of use the thrust to your advantage, but the same token, they'd had so much more nose authority than we had. And probably the biggest problem with fighting the Tomcat when you got slow is the stabs would stall out.
What alpha? I mean, 30 alpha or something, or pretty low?
We didn't have true AOA. We had units. so it was kind of a useless number. So I think I don't quote me. I want to say it was like maybe 24 AOA.
Is it a 9G jet?
It was 6.5 typically.
Oh,
if you
gentlemanly.
You could, yeah. So it depended on the fuel load, depending on the wing sweep and all that stuff. But we just basically targeted 6.5. There were little realms where you could get a little bit more, but it was just basically 6.5. Is all we targeted, and it would tell on you if you pulled more in the D and show a digital readout, and then you got to go lower your head and walk to maintenance.
So going back home behind the ship, I mean, obviously we talked about it a minute ago. To get to Tomcats, you had to have pretty good grades. Why is that? I mean, is it a harder aircraft behind the boat?
It is. It's a much harder aircraft. And again, I lucked out because I had DFCS. Mm-hmm. Prior to that, the AFCS jets were a complete handful behind the boat. So, I mean, for instance, if they did a lineup correction, like they would dip their wings, line up, well, that nose would wander around like this and then eventually settle down.
So is that the too loose cougar thing at the beginning of Top Gun? Is that real?
That's extremely exaggerated, but I mean, but no kidding, you would do, and we would have to practice it during FWPs. We would turn the DFCS off in case we had a failure with it. We had to make sure we could recover against the boat. But no kidding, you'd do a lineup and the nose would just sit there and it'd like crap. 3 oscillations settle out, So it was extreme handful for the earlier guys. We lucked out with the DFCS. It was much more stable. But the biggest problem is we had the big engines. I mean, you're just such minute throttle corrections.
They're like on the backside, throttle back.
Yeah, you're just barely moving those throttles because if you added it was nothing like the Hornet. I mean, I would say, you're just barely walking those throttles and just made such a huge thrust difference. And you could easily get overpowered. But we did have DLC, which was great. It was called direct lift control. It's because Tomcat didn't have ailerons, had spoilers. So they would lift up a little bit. And you had a rolly wheel on the stick. And you go DLC up or DLC down. And that was huge just to kill the lift on the wing in case you're getting high.
Wow.
That type of thing.
Now they have magic carpet. You don't need any of that stuff. Just drive it on down. So you took the Tomcat to war, air to ground probably mostly. I mean, it's been a while. You're not that old. It's been a while since we've had a shooting war. I mean, as far as an aircraft to get you home, I mean, was that do the mission and go home? Was it suitable for air to ground? I mean, were you comfortable with it?
Yeah, I was very comfortable with it. We had. So for the OIF, we just got cleared to drop JDAM.
Oh, wow.
So we just got it. Literally, the guys tested it and showed up. The test guy showed up at the boat and loaded the jets and gave us a brief. Here's what you do. Go.
Wow.
And that was an amazing capability. But we could only carry 2,000 pounders. That was it. It's the only thing that was flight cleared.
Wow.
So
that's a lot of hate. We'll blow up everything with it.
So, I mean, you're dropping VW Beetles. You got to carry 3 of those things, and it was a lot of firepower that we could carry in, and that was a huge help for us for doing that. But we still had the lantern pod. We still had the GBU standard laser guided bombs.
So you didn't have the AT flare like the Hornet.
No, we never got cleared for that. All that money went to the Super Hornets.
That makes sense. So how many tours did you do in the F-14?
I did 2 cruises, 1 tour. It was just under 4 years. I got extended for the second cruise because I was a FAC-A and we needed FAC-As for the cruise. So
FAC-A in the Tomcat?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that was a thing. So what was that training like?
That was fun training. That was a good time. So I don't know if it's still that way, but I always had to, for the Navy side, I had to be a 2-seat cockpit for the FAC-A. Mm-hmm. So the Tomcats were the only ones that were doing it when out in that time frame. So we would do the training. There was the syllabus was great. You got to go to a ground. You basically become a JTAC first. Yeah,
so for everybody at home, forward air controller, airborne, and then joint terminal attack controller, basically the guys that call in airstrikes, either from the air or from the ground.
So that was awesome training. We had Marine guys that instructed us with all that stuff, and we got to go do the call for Artie and do all that stuff, and got to shoot a howitzer. It was cool,
Oh wow, yeah.
and mortars. Yeah, it was pretty good. It was fun.
Did no Actually, failure to? It wasn't like the GIF where the doesn't fail and you got to run away.
No, and by the way, those things, in the movies, they're always quiet.
They're loud.
Those things are deafening when they go off.
Yeah. Wow.
But so we did that first, and then had a whole syllabus that we'd work up with for the airborne stuff. And we'd work helos, we'd work a bunch of different aircraft, we worked A-10s, Warriors, all sorts of stuff. So it was fantastic training.
And then you do that in the Tomcat.
Yep, doing the Tomcat. Yep. So, the pilot's doing his thing as far as, maneuvering the jet around to get in the right position. We're both working on helping out during 9 lines. The Rio's doing a lot of the talking. Typically the pilots will do all the talk-ons.
So how does that's a good point. So if you were the FAC-A aircraft, did the Rio have to be FAC-A qualified as well?
Yes, both had to be. Yep, they were FAC-A qualified.
Okay,
yep.
So you guys were trained in coordinating as FAC-As, and okay. That's interesting. Yep. I didn't know that.
Yep.
Wow.
So, as much stuff as typically goes on in some of those scenarios, I think it really helped to have 2 people.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I can't imagine doing that one scene.
In an A-10? Oh my God. Yeah. Wow.
A lot.
So, from the Tomcat, what was next in your career? Is that when you went to the RAF?
Yeah. So I rolled out of that squadron in 2005. It was VF-31, the Tomcatters.
And that was the shutdown? That was when that squadron went away?
No, they were actually the last squadron to transition. But so I was rolling out of there 2005. The VF-101, the RAG, had shut down.
Yeah.
There was only basically, I think, maybe 2 squadrons left. So there was really I got no place to go.
I got nowhere else to be.
So the choice was either Lemoine, to go be an instructor out there.
You've had some rough times at Lemoine more recently. We won't go into that story, but continue.
It wasn't my fault.
Anyway, carry on.
So there wasn't, a whole lot of options, and I had been kind of looking at these, what we call them PEP tour, personal exchange program. And I got a list and started deciphering it. And the detailers they don't like to send you to those because it gets you, off your
you're out track. Yeah.
Which I didn't care. I just wanted to stay in the cockpit. I want to stay flying. That's why I, came in. And so I was looking pretty hard at these things, and I found one. Actually, initially I was supposed to go to France to go fly the Super E out of Plaisier.
Oh, yeah. Bonjour. Have you ever seen Skyfighters? They're pretty, the French Air Force is pretty nice. Go on.
I was pretty juiced about that, and we had to go to DLI, get the language training and everything. Everything was on track, and the French wasn't playing. Well, they weren't playing so well anymore. That's what the freedom fries and all that kind of thing. So State Department shut it down. So it was like, oh, you're not. You're not going there. Okay.
Sorry.
So, yeah.
No,
so
we.
Yeah. So there was another one, Tornadoes, and it was in the UK, and that's all the info I could get. Nobody had any info. It had been gapped. The guy that Hitter was the guy's name that was there before, and he had left like a year prior, and it was gapped. And I started inquiring about it, and I had to sign a waiver. You're going to go off track. You may not be part of command. I was like, it's fine.
I don't care. I'm here to fly. Yeah.
So it worked out, and it turns out the squadron had moved. They were down in Coningsby, but they had just moved up to Scotland, up to RAF Lucas, which is even better.
Yeah.
So, but it was kind of funny. That was, my wife was all for it. We're all for the adventure, but we pretty much had to do everything ourselves. Okay. The detailer didn't have any info. Nobody, I had to look up on Google to find the squadron's phone number and call them and say, hey, nobody knew where they were at. Everyone's like, As far as the Navy was concerned, they were down in Coningsby. I'm like, they're not.
They
there,
left.
You know?
Yeah, there's no one there.
So I finally got a hold of, some people, and I got a hold of there was a chief that was in the embassy in London. He worked for the defense attaché there. He actually had the info, so he was my main point of contact. And eventually, it all worked out. We moved over there. My stuff showed up, and I was there for 3 years.
To the right place?
Yeah, right place.
Okay, it actually showed up to where you were?
Yeah, and we actually paid our own dime to go out there and just to go meet the squadron and just to find a place to live, and because we were getting zero help because I was the only Navy guy up there.
So as an exchange tour, you're with the Air Force, right? Not the Navy or anything. You're flying with the Royal Air Force. I'm
flying with the Royal Air Force, yeah.
What was their checkout process like to get you flying?
So they had they had quite a few exchange pilots that would come through. So there was me, there was a Marine, and then a Air Force guy. We were all in separate squadrons there. I was in the OCU, or their training unit. The other guys were in the frontline squadrons. So they had a whole course set up that they typically did. So we would go. It's called the UK Orientation Course. You can figure out that acronym. And it was down. You flew.
I got
it. We flew Hawks. We had to go fly Hawks, Mark 1 Hawks.
Like you got called in one?
Yeah.
All right, I got to update the slide, dude. I'm running out of airplanes for you.
Yeah, so we flew Hawks, and we got I think it was 15 hours in one. We didn't solo them, but we had to go through the whole ground school course and all the simulators and all that stuff. So I mean, that was a month-long course, but that was a lot of fun to fly that thing. And it's essentially it was like a T-45. Yeah. That's what the T-45 is based off of. Mm-hmm. So, but it was very old school. I mean, there was digital nothing in that thing. It was all analog.
Like a T-38.
Yeah, we did a ton of low levels. No radar altimeter. We do low levels.
Yeah, who needs it?
Yeah, and they don't have routes. They have low flying areas that you check into.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, how do you know how high you are? He's like, oh, mate, that's easy. Sheep have legs at 100 feet. Cows have legs at 200 feet. Like, oh, okay. So if you see the legs of a sheep, you're at 100 feet or closer.
Perfect.
I'm like, it works.
All right.
Yeah. So he did that first, and then you went back. The squadron I was going to stay in, the OCU, and I did the full. I was in a normal student class. I had normal first ab initio guys with me, and we did the whole full course. And then I had to do an instructor workup course after that, and then off you went.
You were an 03 at this time, like a lieutenant?
Yeah, 03.
And then you went to is it Tornado or Tornado? I'm so confused. Everybody.
Yeah, it's Tornado.
Okay, yeah. Tornado.
I showed up saying Tornado, and they were like, looked at me kind of funny, like, it's Tornado, mate. Oh,
why would you change it? Anyway, all right. So tell me about that airplane, because I don't know anything. In fact, you made me change the slide because I had to Google it. I'm like, it's a GR4. He's like, no, it's an F3.
Oh no, those were fighting words. They were there. Yeah.
Whoops.
So I flew the F3, which was their air defense variant.
Nice.
So that was it was a derivative of the GR4 essentially. So it was dedicated air-to-air defense. It had carried more fuel. It was a little bit longer fuselage, completely really long nose for the Foxhound radar that was in it, and it still had everything else was very similar. So it looked a lot like it, unless you knew the difference between the nose. The nose was the biggest telltale sign that you could tell the difference on it. But it was an interesting aircraft.
Yeah,
it was.
It's two seats, right? Or two-seater?
2 seats. Yep. Yeah. So they had a navigator, just like the Tomcat, dedicated guy run the radar. It had zero strike capability. You had a gun, but that was it. It was, I would call it a very mandrolic airplane. So a lot of manual. So says where Tomcat had auto wing sweep, or you could go manual as well in the Tomcat, but normally you just flew around in auto. This thing was all manual sweep. So you had a lever down next to your throttle that you had to sweep the wings. You had maneuvering devices that was on the throttle as well. That was all manual. Tomcat, that was all auto.
Like a leading edge flap or something? Like
yeah, the slats and the flaps would droop a little bit.
But you had to do them on your own.
You had to do them on your own.
Holy crap.
And yeah, and then the other crazy thing is it would have 2 speeds for everything. So you'd have a normal operating speed, then a never exceed speed. You're like, well, which is it?
Never exceed speed, obviously. I mean,
yeah. Right? so you had all these. You had to memorize 2 speeds for everything, for like the wings. So there's actually more than that. So you had a Mach, and then you had an indicated airspeed, and there's 2 of those for each. So you had all these speeds you had to remember, and for each wing sweep detent, because it would go 25 all the way back to, I think it was 65.
Wow.
And you had all these different detents to go. I think there's 25, 35, 55, and then there was a combat wing in there, and it was, and the jet would talk to you if you were starting to get close to overspeeding it. You feel it kind of starting to shake a little bit as far as the wings, or you definitely knew it if you forgot to put the maneuvering devices down. You tried to
just buff it. Yeah. Was it more maneuverable than a Tomcat?
Oh no.
No,
that thing was horrible.
Just
absolutely horrible.
I mean, would you get your ass kicked every time you went and did dissimilar with anybody?
Yeah, it wasn't. I mean,
it's an interceptor, right? I mean, that's the whole point.
Yeah.
It's kind of the get high, get fast, do good work kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, the rate wasn't bad, but the single circle, it just wasn't good. And the other problem was it had that huge tail on it. You were limited to like 20 alpha.
Ooh.
21 was the never exceed.
And you had no limiter, so you had to manually.
Yeah. Oh, you right through it, and you know it if you pull it through it. You look back in the window, and the tail's just doing. So you try, it was kind of scary. You never wanted to pull too much alpha, but it was just very underpowered. So it had turbojet engines, didn't have turbo fans.
Oh wow.
It would scream down low though. I mean, it was a fast aircraft.
Did you do the Mach loop?
Yeah, we did down there. Yep.
Awesome. That's awesome.
Down south, you get on there, do it. The other crazy thing with the engines that because it was designed originally, it was an air to low level airplane. Now they're trying to make it a high altitude airplane. So one engine was tuned for a high altitude, one engine was tuned for low altitude. One engine had strakes down the intake to help with the airflow.
Yeah.
So theory being, you would only snuff one engine if you went.
It works. It's logic. I mean, I guess I follow the logic. That's awesome. Yeah. How many hours did you end up flying it?
I think I had a little over 500 hours, almost 600 hours in it.
In like 5 years, 4 years?
3 years.
3 years. You're flying your ass off.
Yeah, it was a lot of flying in it.
So is it the RAG? I mean, that's what you ended up like teaching at the RAG over there? And how did they culturally, I mean, what was it? How was it different than being in an American fighter squadron?
It was extremely similar, just different accents, a little bit different flight. I would say the biggest difference was how they conducted themselves, like as far as the in and outs and the formality, as far as dining ins and hail wells, and they had all these parties, that they would very.
Did you yell Tomcats at their dining ins as well?
No. I was alone. I was by myself. I didn't want to.
Yeah, you don't have any mutual support on that.
No, but they were, and I was warned when I come over there. I had he goes, "You're going to need a tux, and you're going to need all sets of your formal wear," and I did because we used them all the time.
Wow!
And,
did they have roll calls?
They didn't really do roll calls per se.
No, they like to get fancy. They don't like to just hang out in the bar and yell at each other.
I mean, they would kind of have some impromptu ones like that in their club and their messes, but it was just a lot more formalities. But it was fun. They had a lot of fun.
Do you still keep in touch with any of the dudes across the pond?
Yep.
I mean, what are they doing now? I mean, did they all go to like the airlines? Oh, the Typhoon.
No, Typhoon is where most of them went. So my only claim to fame is I am the last Navy swing wing fighter pilot.
Nice. Another thing for the slide. You didn't do. I mean, like I.
So the Tomcat was gone in 2006.
Yeah.
And then I was the last Navy guy to fly the Tornado because the guy was following me, he went to the Typhoon.
Did they call you Oral Plaisier in the Queensland? Yes. And they had no problem with that?
They had no problem
with that at all.
Their call signs are very, very boring.
Like what's a typical British call sign? Like Steve?
No, it would just. Some would just play on their name a little bit.
Yeah.
And some would have a funny thing behind them, but most of them were very plain. Not nearly as creative as the Navy was.
Like ass face. Like
yeah.
That.
There's
so
a Z in there.
There are 3. Yeah, right. 3 years of that. What'd you do after that point? Like, what was the?
So after that point, I was up on my contract because I extended my squadron, and I had 3 years on my shore tour, which normally it's only 2.5 years. So that extended me to the point where I could actually drop my letter and get out, which was what I was planning on doing. And at that point, and I had gone back to the States to start to kind of rush some squadrons and guard units. And
did you go? Did you actually look at the Air Force?
No, I actually didn't look at the Air Force. I was afraid of the guard. I didn't know anything about them. Yeah. I really didn't. Nothing. I didn't know anybody in the guard. I just knew nothing about it. So I was just looking at like the C9 squadrons and those kind of things. To try and get my time to get in the airlines. But then it was an odd thing. The detailer calls me and he's like, "Hey, I got your letter here," because I had dropped my letter. And he's like, "Is there anything we can do to keep you in?"
No
and
kidding.
I'm like, this doesn't normally happen, And I'm like,
who is this?
But a lot of guys in my time frame had already jumped ship, so they were starting to get desperate, which is why they're looking at me now. So
you're all that's left.
You're all that. No, but so I said, well, I go, give me a Hornet qual, but I want to go to either 106 or VFC 12 in Oceana.
Yep.
Which was the adversary squadron there. And he's like, hold on, let me get you back with you. And he calls back a couple hours later. He's like, okay, I can get you a Hornet qual and VFC 12. And I go, well, it's got to be 3-year orders. He's like, hold on. Okay.
Negotiating over here. Yeah.
So, and that's what it came down to. So I ended up going to VFC 12 next and getting a Hornet qual, which was interesting. 10 hours. Don't
I did that.
Yourself.
I did that. That's the one I did too. I was in the Viper. I'm a lieutenant, captain, lieutenant type going to the Viper, and they're like, okay, here's your check ride. And then it's like, how do you even work the radar?
Yeah. I know. I'm like going through this, the CBTs. How does that radar? Because I've never ran a radar.
Yeah.
First time for me ever running a radar.
Oh, you got a guy for that.
Yeah.
There's a guy in the back. There's always a guy. Wow.
So that was the first time really flying by myself too, which was
scary.
Kind of a shock.
Yeah.
It was scary.
So you did that as active duty, and then you had some kind of break because when you came to 204, you had to go back to the RAG, right? I remember that.
Yeah. So
we were about the same timeline at 204. I think you went before me, like right before.
It was almost within a month.
Yeah.
So from there I went and did a department tour in Bradian flying the T-45s.
Another thing for the damn slide, dude. You gotta tell me all these things.
So this is T-45 Charlies I was doing.
Yeah. Now. Wow. So you instructed students.
Yeah. So I was department head there, and I was there for 2.5 years, and then that's when I got out, and then went to 204.
So, going back to the Hornet, because people are what was the biggest? I mean, the Alpha of the Hornet, probably the biggest culture shock.
Yeah.
Of anything. Did it feel underpowered?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely not as powerful as the Tomcat was, but I mean,
Yeah.
it still did pretty good,
Yeah.
especially the way that we always flew them, which was with nothing on them.
Flicked off. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it was pretty impressive. Now, when you put stuff on it, that was pretty
Depressing.
horrible. Yeah. That's where the big difference in the Tomcat, you didn't feel that as much.
Yeah.
You had some thrusties to get through that kind of stuff, but just the maneuvering, I mean, it's fantastically flying jet. I mean, just do anything you want with it. That's what was so cool with it.
That's
And
awesome.
just very forgiving, and the alpha, it's just.
You can get yourself in trouble though, because you're like, I'm in this weird. How did I get here? It's happening. I don't know, but it's happening.
Coming down.
So
yeah, I mean,
yeah, that's awesome, man. Instructing civilian versus T-45s. What's the biggest difference? Military versus teaching primary.
You can yell at their students. There's nothing they can do. No.
Which side, civilian or military?
No, I would say on the military side, the students are showing up much more prepared and much more business than on the civilian side. But and that's not to say that I didn't have students that were prepared, but in general, I mean, it's just completely different flying that you're doing too. And it's so much more fast paced than what civilian stuff does. So.
And then you came over to old 204 and flew with old Mover.
Yeah.
What a ride that was.
Good time. Good times for a while.
A lot of things happen. And
A lot of things happen.
Then you retired, and what 75, 76?
A300.
A300. Wow.
Yeah.
The big yoke.
Old school wide body.
You like old school aircraft, man. I got a trend. So throughout your career, do you have this is my scariest moment story?
There's a couple.
Is there a Tomcat one? Because I'm looking at the chat and everybody's like, Tomcats.
So there was one in OIF, but I would say that one was just kind of getting shot at and that kind of thing, and where the Tomcat really kind of came through.
Go on. That sounds awesome.
And so, so we got tasked to go blow something up.
Mm-hmm.
We'll leave it at that. And we got re-rolled because we were supposed to blow up, of all things, a no kidding rocket factory.
Oh wow.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't get any better.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
So we're like, oh, that's going to be awesome.
There's got to be some secondaries here.
But we got retasked and to go get something that was more time sensitive, and we were the only ones that had the gas to go do it. And so I was with my skipper, and he was the lead. I was the wing, and we went and go into some serious bad guy country there, and we were getting shot up quite a bit. And the Tomcat had a very good jammer on board. It was called the DE did. It's called the ASPJ. Nobody really knew what it did. They really wouldn't tell us what they did. I did, but I know for a fact that we came back because that thing was doing some good work. And
wow.
You're seeing things go up in between us, and kind of like maneuvering and things following you, and suddenly they go stupid, and and so that was an interesting night, and we got our things off, and then coming back home, the Tomcat fuel system was very complex, and
you have to tap the gauge. I remember that from Top Gun. You have to tap the gauges.
And we were in blower a lot during that whole thing. And basically we had this giant fuel imbalance that happened. And the problem is we were in the clouds moving around, and there was a really bright flash, and then lots of warning horns came on, and we're like, we didn't know what it was. We thought something went boom, near us. Turns out it was the turns out it was the 8,000 pounds of ordnance that had gone boom that we were seeing. But we didn't know that because we're in the clouds, and we come out of it, and we've got a really big fuel problem, and basically had a huge fuel split, and the left, I think it was the left, was about to flame out, and we're in pretty deep bad guy country, and we ended up going. My skipper ends up coordinating tankers. Those guys crossed the line that they weren't supposed to come meet us, and it was literally like, you get one shot at this, or you're diverting into lights out runway kind of land. It was kind of a big deal. And we got the fuel, and we came back home. But yeah, that was probably the scariest one I had.
Yeah, I'm scared just sitting here. Jesus, I can just imagine. That's terrible.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the other one was probably my second cat stroke in the Tomcat. We lost the right engine.
Ooh.
On the cat stroke. So the GE-110s were pretty much bulletproof. I mean, except for that day.
Wow.
And no kidding. It felt like a sledgehammer on the side of the airplane, and I didn't know what's going on. I mean, it was my second cat stroke in this thing, and the tower starts screaming at me, climb, 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 And
did you settle off? I mean, under the boat?
It settled down. I never even had to go into afterburner because you didn't use afterburner on that.
God.
And it climbed away because we were, it had so much thrust. It just
day or night?
Away. It was day, thankfully.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But that one was pretty scary. Going and but it always had so much thrust. You just didn't have to worry about it.
Wow.
You couldn't do full burner cat strokes on that thing because it had too much thrust. If you were to lose an engine, you would lose it. You couldn't control it.
Did you not do burner takeoffs either, like on regular runways?
Yeah, we did dry power takeoffs or mill power, and once you're airborne, guys would stroke it then and play around. But
yeah, that's like in the Top Gun when they take off, they do the formation takeoff, and then they light the blower, and the number two lights 6 seconds after the number one.
Right. Yeah.
He lit them on the ground.
Those guys actually would take off in full burner. They were okay.
The Pratts.
They didn't have thrusties as we had.
Oh, okay.
But there was a thrust limiting system on it that if one blower snuffed out, the other one would go to min.
Yeah.
Because if it didn't, you couldn't correct it.
Wow. Wow. Oh, well. All right. One more question for the chat people at home. Start getting your super chat questions ready because we're about to go to Q&A. But
all right.
we always talk about on this channel, make them tell overcoming adversity. And you kind of alluded to it a little bit. But do you have a moment in your career where people told you this is never going to happen and, you kind of did it anyway? I mean, obviously you've had a good career. So has there ever been a time where people tell you it's impossible and yet they were wrong?
If people were telling me it was impossible, it was definitely going to be a hurdle. And I kind of, like I said, alluded it was my eyesight.
Yeah.
It was starting to waver a little bit. It was the distance vision that I was having a hard time with. So it wasn't that bad, but it was enough where at that time you had to be 20/20 uncorrected. No exceptions. So I went, there was this kind of experiment, it wasn't really experimental, they still do it. It was called orthokeratology.
Mm-hmm. And
you wear these hard contact lenses and it reshapes your cornea temporarily, just enough where you can see, so you'd wear them, the way it was designed was you would wear them at night, take them off, and you could see during the day and wear them back at night. Extremely uncomfortable. Always felt like you had something in your eye. But so I was doing that, and it got me down to 20/20. But it was literally the night I was getting ready to leave for OCS. I'm packing, and I'm trying to put one of these stupid things in, and I drop it, and it shatters.
Oh!
So each one was made specifically. You stepped it, because it's slowly reshaping your eye to where it needs to be.
Yeah.
And so I didn't have the one that I needed, so I only had one, and I kind of put the other one, but it wasn't right, and it hurt, But so I'm like, great. So I get down there, and they put out these things. You had to sign things, we can tell if you've had orthokeratology. We do laser mapping of your eye. If we find out you've had it, you're grounded. If you've had any laser eye surgery, all these warnings. And I'm like, well, it's my only option I got. So see what happens. And so now I'm really freaking out. I'm like, I don't think I'm going to get through this. And because I could tell, I think it was my right eye, wasn't seen as crisp. And you go to your medical stuff. I think it's within like the basically like the second day. And I'm doing the eye test, and I'm struggling on that right one. And the corpsman's sitting there, and he's like, "You want to try that line again?" And try it again. And he kind of, okay, that's good enough.
Yeah.
And I to this day, I think he kind of let me slide through. It was that down to that. I mean, it was. I know I missed a couple. I don't know if that was within enough, but
Yeah.
But that was one thing that I had to, come over and then. One other thing they had when I went to the. I didn't know about it, but they do the EKGs when you first show up to the thing.
Yeah, murmur.
Apparently, my heart is like twisted.
Oh,
and
Jesus!
Like something was like the valve is like in a different position than normal, and so I'd get these flat lines on the EKG, and I'm kind of like. I'm like, what's going on? We're at EKG and there's flat lines and the people are coming over and they're like, whoa, they're talking. But I had to go see a specialist and to get signed off, and it turns out it was nothing. But there's just this weird thing on the heart. But I was like, oh, that's it. But I didn't give up. I kept going and
good.
Went.
Awesome. Well, that's all the questions I have. Let's see what the audience.
That was all you.
That was all me. I'm just curious. I needed to know these things. So, Toddy wants to know: have you ever had a ramp strike in the Tomcat?
Oh no, you don't do that.
Okay, all right.
I know somebody that has and lived to tell about it, but normally that's quite catastrophic.
And then this question is: how many zeros did you shoot down?
Zeros from the final countdown?
Yeah.
No.
Let's see. What was so in the everybody? These are all Tomcat, dude. I'm sorry. It's very popular on the DCS game simulator.
Yeah.
So
that's pretty amazing, realistic. That's pretty incredible.
Did it shake like that? I mean, was it a?
It did. Yeah, that thing was always bumping around. And
did it shake like Top Gun though? Because they're shaking just riding down the road like it needs a new alignment.
No, when you're maneuvering, that thing was always bumping around a lot. It was not smooth like the Hornet.
Let's see. Your biggest foe, I guess. What were you worried about fighting in the Tomcat? What jet? I guess any country.
I would say it was the F-16.
Yeah, Vipers.
that was really the only one that could outrate us.
Yeah.
We got down on the deck.
And DCS has it to where the Tomcat outrates everything, like every single everything. So it's a little, I mean,
that F-16 had that impressive, vapor ball turn when then they're pointing at you, where they're whacking on 9Gs, and then
if they're still awake.
But I mean, the Hornet was still. The Hornet could beat it in a 1v1.
Yeah.
There's in the right hands, it would be a pretty good handful, but it was still. And then you throw in high off bore sight weapons, which we never had. And it's
right. Yeah. When they talk about this, they usually talk about guns only kind of stuff. Did you when you did you ever get to fight the Tomcat like on the other side, like as once you were flying like Tornadoes or Hornets? Have you ever fought a Tomcat in another aircraft?
No, I never did. No, because we came close once when I was in the UK, but the guys didn't. The crews changed and they didn't show up. And Tomcat was gone by the time I got back to the States.
Yeah,
I never got. It would have been fun though.
Let's see. How did you find Bonnie, Scotland? I hope we lived up to our reputation. That's from Alan.
I loved it.
Yeah,
we loved it. Yeah, it was a hoot. There's probably not a day that goes by I don't think back on that. It was fun. We lived right near RAF Lucas was right by St. Andrews, the old course and the golf, and it was scenery was gorgeous. The low flying was incredible. And the people too were awesome up there. We had a lot of fun up there.
Did you ever do a bat turn in the F-14? Bat.
Is that they hit the brakes and they'll fly right by?
I don't know what they're calling a bat. I mean, everything's a bat turn. If you you can do a bat turn in anything. I don't.
Tomcat didn't really have a bat turn like the.
I guess the Cobra. Did you ever do the wannabe Cobra from Top Gun? That's the first.
I mean that
has no tactical application whatsoever.
Pretty hokey. We didn't have that much AOA to pull that thing off.
Yeah.
The stabs would stall out.
Yeah. Bat turn. Everybody keeps saying. Oh, okay, here we go. How did you get your call sign? Probably the G-rated version.
Because it could have been worse. No, it was given. That's how I got it.
Okay. Next question. I have if some things are not made for the channel. I understand that. We can move on.
To play in the last name. We'll leave it at that.
It seems obvious, but some things aren't. Let's see. Have you fired the Phoenix, and did it actually go anywhere?
Yes.
Or did it just fall off?
Yeah. 3 of them.
Actually. Did you really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that thing was a beast. I think it's 1,000 pounds. That thing was fun. Did it was rock?
Like dropping a bomb?
Yeah, it was the crazy thing was it had a 3-second launch time. So you pull the trigger, nothing would happen for 3 seconds. So you pull the trigger and you're like, oh no. and then you see the little school bus fly away, and there went
Dude, that picture I have that you sent me, I mean it is bigger than you. I mean it's
huge.
It's huge. It's a massive.
It was like 11 feet or some crazy thing. Yeah, 1,000 pounds.
Well, I mean, was it a go-to weapon? I mean, was it something?
That was. I mean, that was our only active weapon. We never got cleared
for the AMRAAM.
It was in our SMS and the D, but they never cleared us for it.
Oh wow!
So we had that, and then Sparrow, and then Sidewinder. But that was our main weapon. But actually, our last cruise, they took it away.
Oh really?
They stopped studying it. Yeah.
So you just heaters only? Aim sevens
only to the merge, baby.
Wow. Wow. All right. Well, we'll get you one more question here. Let's see. A good question from the audience. Favorite moment in your F-14 career?
Favorite moment?
Moment.
Oh, man. That was probably coming home from the first cruise.
Yeah.
We were gone. We were supposed to be gone 6 months. We got extended for OAF, and we were gone almost 10 and a half months.
Okay.
And just coming home to see the, we didn't have any kids at the time. But my wife and my parents were there, and it was a big deal for the flying because we were kind of the first ones to come back and all that. And there's a lot of hoop, pomp, and circumstance going on.
Wow.
And we got to do a 10-plane flying. We got all 10 jets. Yeah. There's footage out there somewhere of it flying. It was cool.
Wow, that is awesome. Well, I will. If they have any more Tomcat questions, I will keep them in mind for when I'm playing DCS, so that I'll always ask you all the Tomcat stuff, so that we make sure what it is. But dude, I appreciate you being on the channel. Do you have any parting shots? There's a lot of people that are in the process, thinking about going into the process, want to be a fighter pilot. I mean, if you could just tell them one thing. I mean, for an aspiring young wannabe fighter pilot, what do you tell them?
Don't give up on your dreams. I mean, it's hokey that but I wanted to, fly fighters in the Navy. It was Top Gun was a big influence. I'm not gonna lie about it, but as hokey as it is, but that's what I wanted to do, and I didn't. That's what I laser focused on, and I didn't give up on it. And you gotta keep your nose to the grindstone to get through and get jets and everything, but that's what I wanted, and that's what I didn't give up on. And I did what I wanted to do once I was there. I didn't follow the career path, but I stayed in the cockpit for 18 years. You know,
and have an amazing set of stories for just about. I mean, dude, I've got to like the slide. I can't even. I got to keep updating it now. I aspire. Everybody's like, Mover, you flew the Viper and the Hornet, dude. This is that's way cooler, man.
Better be lucky than good. That's what I always say.
That is true. That is true. Well, we had a good time flying together at 204, man, and hopefully we'll get some. Maybe when this COVID's over, we'll go fly in the Oral 1, Oral 2.
I guess you could call it that. Yeah.
How many airplanes do you have now?
2.
Did you get rid of the pits?
No, I still got that. Yeah. That's my fighter replacement.
It's an S1.
Yeah, S1. Yep.
Yeah, that's single seat though. I mean, so now once you went single seat, you couldn't go back, right? You gotta. It's much better. It's quiet.
I would love to get a 2-seat, but
yeah. Somebody says it's Oral A and Oral B.
There you go.
Very good thing. Awesome, man. Well, I thank you so much for being on the channel. I appreciate all that you've done for aviation, and dude, I mean, it was awesome serving with you and flying with you, and thank you for telling your story, because I think people are going to love this. So I appreciate you. And for the chat, thank you for having us. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time. Excuse me. No. Oh! Been a lot of that.
Usually fly with the doors off. All hot speed. Don't be a douche. Rule number 1. Make them tell you no.